How Trevor Lawrence distributes the football will be based on competition and results. I'll tell you all about it here today.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is your team every day here on Locked On Jaguars. We thank you for making us your first listen. I am Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast. 2 decades of being a credentialed member of this football community here in North Florida. I think I'm pretty qualified to give you an idea of what's going on with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I intend to do that here today. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Shout out to the everydayers that join us every single day here without fail. We appreciate you. And if you're a newcomer, we'll give you a reason to hang around to make sure that you don't miss an episode. An episode that can be found wherever you get your podcast, whether you watch or listen. Please make sure you tap into those locations each and every day. All right, a little bit of a roadmap where we're going and where we're going to begin. We'll start with where we're going. BTJ and the drops. By BTJ, I mean Brian Thomas Jr. He's had a couple of drops in games in preseason and in practice, and that's been chronicled. Is it a problem? I'll tell you why I don't think it is, but why the question is even being asked. Wins over stats and credit to where or who gets credit or who gets named to this All-Pro or that All-Pro. It should not factor in to anything. It's all about the wins, and that usually takes care of itself. I'll discuss that. But first and foremost, the quarterback, wide receiver chemistry and distribution that has to first manifest itself before the wins come. And if they do, and Trevor Lawrence has a big year, I don't know why anybody thinks the Jaguars won't have a big year. That's where we're going to start at right now. I saw something yesterday that says Trevor Lawrence is due for a monster season, but they still pick the Jags to go 7-10. Let me explain something to you. If they go 7-10, ain't no season monster enough for people to keep the monster of the media from talking bad about Trevor Lawrence. I guess folks will say, well, Joe Burrow did it. Jacksonville they're not Cincinnati. The Jaguars added 6 new offensive linemen to their team, and they have higher expectations than to just be 8-9. And you can talk about the division that Cincinnati plays in all you want to. The Cincinnati Bengals lost the game to the New England Patriots last year. So I don't want to hear that foolishness about you can be like Cincinnati and have all these dudes put up all of these stats and Trevor Lawrence can almost win the MVP and they could still win 7 games. This team, if Trevor Lawrence has a monster year where he throws over 4,000 yards, he keeps his touchdowns, he keeps his interceptions under double digits or close to it, and then he has nearly 30 touchdown passes, upward of 25 touchdown passes. There's no reason why this team should not do a whole lot better in the win column. But folks are going to talk about who gets the ball first. When you spend 2 first-round picks on Travis Hunter, you would think in any other situation when a dude is chosen number 2 overall and a team had to trade a future first-round pick for him and they were already in the top 5, that's a lot, man. That is a lot. So, folks, there's 2 ways you can look at it. They only moved up 3 spots, and they gave up next year's number 1, which won't be a top 5 pick. I don't think so. But no, they gave up a top 5 pick this year. That's the top 5 pick they gave up just to move up, just for the privilege of moving up. They gave away 26 or the 2026 first-round pick. So let's just assume that pick is number 19. And they trade number 19 to get all the way up to number 2. What would it take if you could guarantee a team that they'd have a top 5 pick the following season? That's good enough. But normally you can't do that because you don't know how the season's going to go. So I kind of look at it and I try to take the compensation part of it with a little bit of a grain of salt. But I will tell you this. There is an expectation that Travis Hunter is supposed to put up these monster numbers. And I don't know how that's necessarily going to happen if they're a team that, one, already has Brian Thomas Jr., who has 1,000-yard receiving year under his belt as a rookie, albeit most of his passes were caught from somebody not named Trevor Lawrence behind a bad offensive line. So you would think that number would go high or higher. The other thing is I just think Diami Brown is going to have an impact also. And Parker Washington is going to be sneaky good. And it seems like Brenton Strange is ready for all of that potential that he has had all of these years to really blow up. And they're going to dump the ball off to their running backs alive. They do that in this Liam Cohen offense. So you have to understand that there's only one thing that's going to determine where Trevor goes with the ball. 1, pre-snap reads. 2, the hot guy. 3, the person that is the most reliable, who catches the ball the most and does more with it. 4, whether or not they can pass protect at a good enough clip to make sure that they can get the ball down the field on those deep routes. And then 5, Trevor himself. He has to they have to keep drives going. And the other day they had a drop by Brian Thomas Jr. They ended up converting on 4th down on that drive, but those drop passes that Trevor had, they have to go away. If you can think back over the last couple of years and think back to games where the Jaguars lost by a point, or not a point, but 1 score, and remember the post patterns where the ball was dropped down the field that would have put the Jaguars in field goal range. You think back to the ineptness in the red zone, or the balls that were dropped in the red zone by a whole bunch of people. You just think back to when they were reeling on some of those things, on some of those drives, and then they had the ball in their own territory and they had to just get something going. And on 3rd down, somebody drops the ball, or on 2nd down, they drop the ball that would have given them a 1st down. And then on 3rd down, they get a sack. All of these little things have to sort of tie together. So you've seen where the little things can affect the team negatively. Here's where the little things can affect the team in a positive way. Be reliable. Maybe they're all going to be reliable. And if they're all reliable, if you think Travis Hunter is going to have the year he's supposed to have, and you think that Brian Thomas Jr. is going to have the year he's supposed to have, and everybody's going to remain healthy, and Brenton Strange is going to be this new up-and-coming receiver, and Diami Brown is going to give you 1 or 2 big plays every game or so down the field, and that Parker Washington will make an impact other than special teams from the line of scrimmage, then I will tell you, if all of those things happen, the Jaguars are going to win more than 7 games. And not to mention, they're going to throw the ball to the running backs. They're going to win more than 7 games. Either that, or they're going to score 30 points a game and lose because the defense can't hold people up. I don't think that's going to happen, though. I think the defense may take a while to really get into their groove, but I do believe by week 4 or 5 that they'll be where they're supposed to be. So I do believe that chemistry and the distribution of the football will all come from one thing, and that is who is going to be the most reliable. And like I said, I hope they're all super, super reliable. We're going to talk wins over stats and credit, because I have told this. I told Jared Bell this from USA Today when he was here. And he said, hey, man, that's a great point. I didn't think about it. Especially when it comes to Travis Hunter. I'll talk more about Brian Thomas Jr. in segment 3. But with Travis Hunter, we have to remember his impact could be those little small catches that we've seen in that one preseason game where he gets 4, 5, 6 yards and creates 2nd and 4, 2nd and 3. But mostly it's going to be the times when he does break a tackle, or he goes up and he catches a ball that he's not supposed to, or he wins a 50-50 ball, or he shakes somebody out of their shoes. They miss a tackle and he goes meet and like the road runner and turns it into a touchdown. It's going to be impact plays over stats for me with Travis Hunter. I'll tell you exactly why I feel that way in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you by FanDuel. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. All right, I'm going to take a little bit of a flyer on an MVP race. I've been naming different people every week, right? I'm going to name another one right now. Trevor Lawrence. How about that for you? Trevor Lawrence, MVP. The Jaguars can win 10 or 11 games, and I'm telling you, if Trevor Lawrence can keep his turnovers down, he can be the MVP. I don't want to hear your mouth either. Be quiet. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. That is August 26th. FanDuel, play your game. Moving and grooving here on Locked On Jaguars, where it is your team every day. I am Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast, trying to walk you through all of these scenarios that are going to lead us up to game one. I saw somebody did a simulation of they did a simulation of the whole AFC South. I ain't gonna tell you who it was. You got to figure that out on your own. But they didn't have one team in the AFC South winning 500 games. They had the Jaguars. One person had the Jaguars winning 6. One person had the Jaguars winning 7. And they do that saying that all of these guys are going to have all of these outstanding years. So they're basically saying you're going to be the 2024 Bengals. And I'm telling you, I think the Jaguars are better in the areas that Cincinnati Bengals are not good. One of them is playmakers. And I do believe that they came in here and attacked this. We had a good spirited debate yesterday about whether or not Travis Hunter or Brian Thomas Jr. will live up to it, or whether Travis is worth it, worth all of the things that that he was traded for. I do believe that basically it's going to take a while to see that. Even if he comes out here and lights it up early, like Odell Beckham did at his first year with the Giants, I would still say, well, you saw it was worth it, but you need to hold your horses, because when you trade future capital for a player, it has to be impact for a long period of time, right? People still say Ricky Williams wasn't worth everything that New Orleans gave up to draft him, because then they traded him to Miami. And Ricky Williams actually won the rushing title, had 10,000 yards rushing in his career, had over 12,000, almost 13,000 yards from scrimmage in his career with about 80 touchdowns. And people still say he wasn't worth it. Ricky Williams and Reggie Bush are the two people that I think about with Travis Hunter, because one, both of those guys are probably 2 of the 5 or 6 best football players I've ever seen in college. And Travis is another one who had that kind of potential and that kind of media coverage. So you always wonder, how does that translate to the NFL? At the very least, he'll be a big playmaker. At the very least, he's going to compete. At the very least, he is never going to look like this is bigger than him. He will never look like somebody's more athletic. He will never look like he can't foot the bill in terms of being out there with them. Travis Hunter ain't scared of these people. And normally when you get guys that are rookies that come into the National Football League, they always talk about the speed of the game. The speed of the game is different. That's a fact. But it's more than just the speed of the game. It's them. They can run fast. In fact, they're 21-22. They're probably faster than all of those other people. But the reason why the speed of the game is different for them, because most of them don't know where to go. You ever try to drive somewhere and you ain't know where you go? You always slow down and look for street signs because you don't want to pass it, right? But the person that knows exactly where they're going, they're barely paying attention, man. And they get to those mile markers and bleep, the blinker comes on and they go exactly where they want to go. And they ain't doing all that turning around trying to figure it out. They are going directly there, and they're going 58 miles per hour. And they get there and they know what the mission is. And Mr. Speedball that was passing everything has to double back, turn around, stop, look at his navigation system. And then all of a sudden he shows up at the very same time. That's what it is. It's a mental thing. It's a mental thing. And not only that, it's a confident thing, because a lot of rookies come in and realize these dudes have grown man strength. They can hold you with their pinky and make sure you don't get past them because they've been doing it for so long. I think that part of the game is licked for Travis. He's got that beat. He's been the best player on every field he's been in probably since he was 15 years old, maybe even 14 as a 9th grader. I'm dead serious. When I saw him as a 10th grader, I thought he was the best high school football player I ever, that was out at that time. Maybe not that I've ever seen, but at that particular time. And there's a lot of things that when you get to the NFL, they don't always come with you. They don't always translate. Everybody is good. This is good on good every single week, even on bad teams. Guys are good on good. You don't believe me? The Jaguars were awful last year, and Brian Thomas Jr. could go out there and run and play with anybody, right? Correct. So you got to understand that this is not going to be where he is going to be judged by stats and numbers. Some people will do that, but we ain't talking about them because they just do stuff like that. But other people will look at it and say, okay, what's his impact? Just like with anybody else, if the team wins and he is impactful and he makes plays that lead directly to wins, people won't even mention stats and numbers unless you're in that small group I'm talking about. But stats and numbers do get guys Pro Bowl votes. get guys all pro votes, get people Hall of Fame consideration. So when you have Hall of Fame type media and coverage and expectations and endorsements, most people expect that what's going to come with that eventually is the type of play that leads you to those same accolades, right? He could possibly do all of that and be one of the best players in the league and then still not have the stats that everyone else has. And it's not just because of the presence of Brian Thomas Jr. It's because he's going to play offense and defense. And at some point, you just wonder if him playing both ways will limit his potential to be good at both things. I don't want to say he can't. It's not about not believing in him and having faith. We're trying to just use logic here. The more time he spends away from wide receiver is time that he could have been spending time at wide receiver. The more time he spends away from playing defensive back are reps that he did not take as a defensive back. So logic would have you come to the conclusion that he will never fulfill his potential at each one of those things because he's splitting time doing something else. Nothing wrong with that. Ain't nothing wrong with coming to that conclusion. The thing is though, how does he split that time and how does he perform at each one of those things? What if he's an 8.5 out of 10 at wide receiver and he's an 8.5 out of 10 at DB? It'll be something you've never seen. I don't care. You mentioned Deion Sanders. You can mention Deion wasn't an 8.5 at wide receiver. I don't care if you mentioned Champ Bailey. He wasn't an 8.5 at wide receiver. I don't care if you mentioned Charles Woodson, whoever. No one has done what we have seen this kid do. He should have won the Biletnikoff. I think he did win the Biletnikoff, but he should have won the Thorpe Award. He should have been both the best DB and the best wide receiver in college football last year, but he wasn't. And one of those reasons is because people feel like, okay, I got to divide this thing up. But he actually went out and did it in college. I don't know if he can do that in the NFL. This is a whole different animal. Just the other day when he had to sit out a game because of little upper torso or upper body injury, it wouldn't have kept him out of a real game, but it's the preseason, so why risk it? If he wasn't going to be at his absolute best, why make him play in pain when he doesn't really have to? The game doesn't count. I get all of that. I just want everyone to know that if this team wins, his numbers won't matter. It will be his impact that matters the most. Whenever you do something good and people start talking about you the way that they talked about Brian Thomas Jr. last year, I even saw him on the Pivot podcast with Ryan and Freddie T, Ryan Clark, Fred Taylor, as well as Channing Crowder. I saw that he did that. I think it's great that he's getting that attention. But when you get that attention, something comes along with it. Like you can't ever drop a pass. And we've seen him do it a couple of times. Is it a problem? I was asked. I'll tell you why I don't believe it is in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. Today's show is sponsored, brought to you by Gametime. Listen, man, Gametime is the absolute truth. If you've ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family, maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. I do that all the time here with our baseball team. That's exactly where Gametime comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. The money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, and even invite a bigger group to come with you and chill. That's right. Gametime makes it all possible. Gametime makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to the first pitch, and they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and the lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. One day, I'm going to get up the nerve to go to the Bronx and check out the Red Sox and the Yankees. I am definitely going to do that. So I'll take the guesswork out of buying my tickets with Gametime. Download the app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price. It's all guaranteed. Locked On Jaguars. It is your team every day here. We thank you for making us your first listen. I'm Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast. It's been 2 decades, man, since I first got my first credential. and I haven't missed a beat with the Jaguars. So I kind of got my pulse on the team just a little bit. Shout out to all the creators, especially the local guys around here in Jacksonville that do a great job. But I am grateful that you guys do take the time to spend 30 minutes with me each and every day. I do not take that for granted because I know time is something that you cannot get back. And I usually don't waste time talking about things that may seem trivial. It's not trivial, though. It's the real deal. It comes with the territory when guys like Brian Thomas Jr. come out of nowhere and didn't surprise me at one bit. Ask my boy Toriano, who's probably listened to the show, how I told him that Brian Thomas Jr. was all that in a bag of chips before the draft. I kind of got a decent little track record now when I think somebody's going to be good. And he was actually really, really good. In fact, way more polished than a lot of people give him credit for. Even though the Jaguars only won 4 games, that has not stopped Brian Thomas Jr. from being named in most top 100s. He didn't make it for the Locked On Podcast top 100, but that's probably my fault because I didn't push for it hard enough. But he's a really, really good young player. He covers all the bases, probably the best, the potential to be the best wide receiver since Jimmy Smith. I know a lot of people will mention Justin Blackmon in that 1 year that he had here. I'll agree from a talent perspective, but this is a little bit different. Brian Thomas Jr. doesn't have any off-field issues or any of that stuff, but we have seen him drop a couple of passes, whether that be reports from drops in camp, clips from camp where he has dropped passes. And I've always cautioned and warned people about stuff in camp. This is where guys are actually working on it, working on timing, working on corralling the ball in live action. Guys are in shape, but they're not in football shape. That doesn't just mean conditioning. It also means with how you catch the ball, how you see the ball, getting your toes down, all of that stuff. Just think back to Jamar Chase and all of the drops, and everybody thought he was a drop machine after spending a year away from football. And then all of a sudden now he's a top 2 receiver. I think he's number 1, but if you think his former teammate at LSU is better, I'll give you that. But we're talking about another cat from LSU who was in the same situation that Justin Jefferson was, where everyone talked about Malik Neighbors, and Brian Thomas Jr. actually statistically outperformed Neighbors as a rookie. You can't drop balls when you get all of the attention and people keep calling you great, not without criticism. It comes with the territory. I was asked, do I believe Brian Thomas Jr. has a problem with drops? The answer is no, I don't. But I'm not going to tell you that I don't believe he didn't drop the passes because I sat there and saw him do it. And I was like, okay, you can't do that. At some point, the criticism will come. And it has to. It comes with the territory. It's a part of it. It's not a reason to panic, but it is a reason to brace yourself that when someone has been given all of these superlative adjectives, and rightfully so, they've earned it, that when they make mistakes, especially mistakes that could keep drives going, mistakes that, for instance, when people talked about Trevor Lawrence's stat line, they said 8 for 10. In parentheses, they put 1 drop. They're going to talk about it. It is what it is, man. It all comes with the territory of being labeled or put into a category as being a great player. So I don't think it's an issue. I think it's something to monitor and watch because you don't want him to have, as someone says, is a golf term, the yips or the jips or the yips or whatever it is. You don't want him to get that because then now he's going to be digging himself out of a hole and thinking on it too much. I do believe that with his personality, with his work ethic, I think he's just pressing a little bit because he wants to absolutely be great. And now that he has company in the wide receiver department and with those tight ends and running backs, those opportunities may spread out a little bit thin. But the goal here is that the more the talent you get, the opportunities that you do get are going to be more wide open. So you have to make sure you catch it each and every time. Now, we could say this. He was served up a hospital ball with Trevor Lawrence in week 1. It was a different route, but it was in the same spot where he got hit last week, even when he dropped the ball. So you think this week he may have been pressing or bracing himself and preparing for that collision in that spot. All normal stuff in football. But come the regular season, ain't nobody going to be worried about that. They're going to say it's your job to catch it. No one is above criticism, especially when it's right there in your face. You can either act like it didn't happen, pretend it didn't happen, or acknowledge that it happened and say, look, I don't think it's going to keep happening. And that's what I'm saying today. But if it does keep happening, you got to talk about it. So we're not putting Brian Thomas Jr. on notice, but we are putting you on notice that we will criticize him too if he makes mistakes. We're not going to overlook it, but I have to preface that, or I have to preface what I'm going to say next with that. We're not going to overlook it, but do I today classify it as a problem? Nothing about Brian Thomas Jr. is problematic to me. Every time I think about him, I think about 10 things that are good before I think about him dropping a ball in a preseason game. Remember, the operative word here is pre. That means before season, before the season. It doesn't matter, but it will matter if it goes into the regular season and people will hearken and point right back to what you see. So in a nutshell, I do believe that quarterback wide receiver chemistry, Trevor is not going to have to juggle in his mind where he wants to go with the ball. I think it'll be determined by who's hot and the pre-snap things that are going on. If a receiver is hot, I anticipate him to milk it dry, milk it to the point where it shifts the defense and they can start distributing the ball and getting other people open. I can't wait until this Jaguars passing game is unloaded or unleashed on the rest of the National Football League. You shouldn't wait either. Make sure you get your tickets for the games, even the road games, if you want to travel. It's baseball season right now, man, and I really, really do want to go see the Yankees play. If I get a chance to do it, I will. But if I have to buy tickets, it's going to be at Gametime. This weekend, though, I got my fantasy draft going on. My fantasy draft is going, and I want to be in 2 leagues, one Saturday, one Sunday, and I want to be the king of it. I want to get that hardware like I did a couple of years ago. So I'll listen to Locked On Fantasy Football, the podcast with host Vinny Iyer and Michelle Majuk. I listen every day to prep myself for fantasy draft and become the most informed manager I can be, so I can get that trophy once again. Find Locked On Fantasy Football on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. We appreciate you spending 27 minutes with us today here on Locked On Jaguars. Your time is very, very important, and the fact that you choose to come here and spend it with us is not taken for granted. In fact, I hope you enjoyed the show. Come back tomorrow, and I'll do it again. Make yourself an everydayer because it's your team every day. We'll see you next time on Locked On Jaguars.